I hope you are welcome to this session, and I'm very excited about the conversations going forward. I will allow the panelists 1 minute to introduce themselves. Let's try to stick to the time, and after that, we'll take about 2 minutes each for our first questions, and then we'll try to recap as time permits. So I would say in the order of the introductions, please can we take a minute to introduce ourselves and what we expect from this session. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. My name is Mohatle. I'm currently heading digital banking for FNB Lesotho. Very excited about this session and the insights that are coming with it, with the great panelists within the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we go on?
Hi, I'll just go on. I'm not quite sure what the order was of the initial introductions. My name is Tim Akinnusi. I'm the founder and CEO of MortgageMarket. We're a marketplace for home loans in South Africa. We essentially give access to potential buyers to get access to a marketplace of lenders. And we then pay customers a fee of 5,000 cash back along with your home loans. Excited about hearing from the other panelists and having a good discussion around customer experience and how it's evolving.
Great. Thomas, can we hear from you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas Brennan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Franc.app. It's a savings and investment platform, South Africa's first robo-advisor. We're a mobile-first company and truly believe in the changing customer experience is driving a product innovation. So really looking forward to having a conversation about this with the rest of the panel.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Chukwuma, over to you.
Hi, Charles. Thank you. And hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. Chukwuma, Ibobo is my name. I have about 20 years corporate and multinational experience, ranging from MTN, Kenya Airways. Currently, I work for AXA Mansard. I'm the head of customer analytics. And I've done this role for about 2.5 years. It's been the happiest 2.5 years of my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chukwuma. Do we have Eric on the call? Do we have Daniel on the call from Unity Bank?
Yes, no, he's not joined yet.
Okay, so I will delve straight into the session, and perhaps I'll start from Chukwuma, who just spoke last. It's great seeing the work that you and your team are doing out of AXA Mansard. But I would like to say that when it comes to the business world today, especially with regards to consumers, data is considered very critical. That provides insurance services and a member of the AXA group. How have you deployed technology tools and resources towards enhancing your customer experiences? And then, are you interested? What are the interesting projects or outcomes and experiences you may like to share with the audience today? You're muted.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you so much. How have we deployed digital in customer experience, right? And what are the projects we're running today? First and foremost, in this part of the world, insurance isn't easy to sell. For those on this call, you will agree with me. But AXA Mansard is making good progress on that front because there are certain steps that we took, okay? First and foremost, keeping this brief, before we even talk about digitizing the customer experience, you first want to look at the customer journey. From the customer journey holistically, we began to see that we had some internal problems we needed to fix even before digitizing. So I will start this conversation by saying something interesting. If you don't have line of sight of your innate problems, when you digitize, you will explode those problems even more. So I think the very first step I'll need to mention here is look at your processes first. Look at how your processes can first be better. Then you can talk about digitizing. For me, all I did when I came on board was to first plot a customer journey map. And the result has been phenomenal. You know, I manage 3 lines of business in terms of customer experience: investment, health, which is number 1 in Nigeria today, and insurance. And once we put this into practice, understanding the customer journey first, it made digitization a whole lot easier. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Chukwuma. Talking about customer journey and the importance of understanding it before an attempt at digitalizing those processes. I'll move on now to Sam. Sam is joining us from the First National Bank. And my question to you will be, what are the greatest challenges you have experienced as an organization in your digital business operations? And how have you been able to measure customer experience and translate them to product designs to enable you enhance or increase your business opportunities or market share?
Thanks, Charles. I must admit, it hasn't been a smooth journey, predominantly because most of our products, when we developed them, it took us some time before we realized that we had to put the customer at the center of that. We were more about developing products and lending them to market. And it was exciting, you know, from the tech point of view. But later on, we started seeing, say, hang on, we need to start putting the customer at the design of this product. That is where we got it wrong at first. And then we started working it backwards to say, okay, fine, what is it that the customer needs? And then we came up with the term customer centricity, which is one of the leading terms now in this era since the past 5 years of digital transformation. And as soon as we did that, we started to see more value and more adoption of our channels as we were lending them into the market. So I must say customer centricity is where, and we're not the only ones. I do believe that a lot of the tech giants out there, they started off somewhere. And this notion of customer centricity came at a later stage. And that is why now when you talk of digital transformation, when you talk of customer experience, we start seeing all of these terms flocking together because now that is where the essence of the business is. What is the point of lending a solution that is not going to address your customers' needs? It's one thing to say today, hey, I think I need a smart app that can do 1, 2, 3. But the question is, how is the customer going to take it? Is the customer going to use that channel? Because at the end of the year, we develop these things for the customers to use, not for us to use as the banks, you know? So the key point here is customer centricity. And how have we been measuring success? You'd find that our app, we have a banking app that we've been developing over the years, and we launched it a few years back, and some of the players in our market started following suit. So I think we have been lucky enough or priding ourselves in lending the tech things first in the industry. And what we have seen is that the amount of data, the amount of feedback that we get from our customers based on the different surveys and the feedback that they give us through these different channels that we own, it's amazing, because then it also allows us to see where we can enhance, to see where we can tweak. And it also allows our customers to reach out to us at a fraction of the cost. So yeah, so basically customer centricity is what went wrong, but now we started working it backwards to an extent that we started seeing a lot of value and a lot of uptake of our digital channels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam from First National Bank. I think the feedback from your end is, whereas a business can start somewhere trying to please customers, walking it back to where the customer is at the center will enable us to derive some value. So I will move over now to Thomas from Franc. As an organization, Franc promises to help people have access to investments. And these are people that may otherwise have been excluded without such a solution. But I'll ask, how would you say that customer experience, would you say customer experience is forcing digital transformation, or is it the other way around for you? How can you explain this? You're muted, Thomas.
Thank you. You know, definitely for us, because our clients very often are first-time investors, the challenge of having a digital engagement with them that helps them understand investing and what they're putting their money towards, but also overcoming some of the sort of the trust barriers and the knowledge barriers that do exist within the market. So for us, it's without a doubt been putting the customer first. And as you know, the panelists have already said, you know, having that customer centricity, trying to understand what are the challenges that they're facing, what are the uncertainties that they have, you know, where are the friction points within, you know, the acquisition pipeline, if you will. And then through a process of testing and iterative design, running design sprints, which we do on a regular basis, sitting down with potential customers, understanding what their needs are, understanding and testing how the experience interacts with them. And then obviously learning from those interactions to constantly enhance. So for us as an organization, very much the customer experience and the demands that and the challenges that we face has forced us to adopt a design process and a product development process, which is iterative, constantly improving, constantly enhancing. And obviously all of that is delivered through a mobile application. So inherently it's, you know, fundamentally digital.
Thank you very much, Frank. Quite interesting. You have a lot of first-time investors, and as such, perhaps a lot of knowledge barriers that you have to deal with. I will move on now to Team. Team, your business is built around customer experience, especially around the home loan sector, where you're trying to digitally transform that industry. I'd say that Africa has a large housing shortfall, and it means that they typically would require funding and loans to buy, and the price points matter a lot. In your period of operation, how were you able to get 6 of South Africa's top banks on one platform willing to share their data for your customers to compare? Did you have a silver bullet? Can you please share your experience with the audience and that of your typical customer? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, you know, I suppose the challenge with the industry of real estate that links into how banks fund individuals looking for home loans, you know, for the most part, it hasn't been transformed in the last, 30 plus years. I mean, just looking at real estate in general, you know, it's a very people intensive type industry. It's not very regulated. There aren't any particular standards that are involved in it. So the experience that customers would receive typically varies quite dramatically, from, you know, really great experiences based on how, you know, the individuals would interact with a particular estate agent, to the attorneys, through to the banks. And prior to us even launching our business back in 2012, just after the global financial crisis here, I think that banks, took a bath. They lost billions, by way of subprime loans here. And of course, that doesn't mean that people don't need housing further into the future. They had to think differently about how they were going to engage the customer. So back then I was at Nedbank, and we built an online application channel that allowed Nedbank to acquire its own customers directly through their website. So the idea of them having to make a simple application straight through to the processing hubs, became something that was possible by having a great online application experience. So when I looked at that channel on its own, if that could work typically for one lender, then the same should hold true and more for a multitude of lenders coming together using the same simple application form that allows them to then compare bank information. So you take that together with a mortgage origination industry that relies on a broker to actually do that application. When you infuse technology with that, you then have a process where you can enhance the mortgage origination agenda by enabling the same customer to make that same application through to all the banks. I was privileged enough to, have gotten a lot of in-depth understanding about the commercial terms that existed between originators and banks, and also the technology framework that was already set up in the banking industry, where originators could typically capture an application through to a bank's operating systems using APIs and using switches. So all we did was actually to then integrate with those switches and build a front end that was capable of delivering the same experience for the customer. And then the innovation comes in where you take the brokerage fees and you actually then pass that back onto the customer whilst giving them a consistent experience when they choose to take up a home loan through any of the banks. So that's the experience that we tried to change, was how do we standardize that origination experience for the customer, and how do we then give them value back? And by so doing, we expect that that experience will be a lot more useful for the customer and a lot more beneficial to them, given that you'll be giving them money back just for capturing on a platform that they would need to capture manually anyway. So that's the way we looked at how we could improve the application experience or the customer service experience for customers when they are getting a home loan. The other challenge has been that, as banks digitize and as they are shrinking their physical footprint, they are relying less and less on, that human touch that exists within the branch infrastructure, and they digitize in that. So you now find yourself in a position where if you are looking to get a home loan and you are operating out of a small town without those branches, the only way you can actually do that is by going on the internet and hoping that those banks have a capable enough front end for you to engage with them. So what we've seen is that by having a marketplace, we could actually consolidate all the banks and still bring back financial inclusion to all of potential buyers in smaller communities where they could get access to all the banks, FNB, Standard Bank, Nedbank, ABSA, and SA Home Loans, all in one space that allows them to get the most out of being able to compare the banks, have the banks actually compete for your business rather than the friction of having to walk into various branches and then trying to compare apples to apples. We've actually made it a lot more convenient and efficient for individuals to do that through a single interface. So yeah, that's one way in which we're trying to move the dial to improve the customer experience for customers within the mortgage space.
Thank you very much, team. That's an interesting insight you've given to us. But I'll give you a second question around how was it possible? I mean, I know you are probably planning for expansion, right? Is that correct? Are you looking outside the South African markets?
Yeah, we're always looking to expand. I think expansion is always on the roadmap. I guess it's a question of the right timing. But I didn't quite hear your full question besides expansion.
Yeah, I haven't come to that. I wanted to know if you were expanding first.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you are expanding outside South Africa, I would like to really know whether you've studied the terrain, whether you've seen the potential challenges with disparate technology platforms, integration layers that don't enable you get in, sandboxes, data regulation disparities across different markets, and how you see that affecting your expansion plans, especially across Africa.
Yeah, look, it's a very loaded question. I think every fintech's mission or goal is to grow one day and to be able to have a much bigger impact beyond the existing geography. But one has to consider some macroeconomic factors that have to be in place to aid your expansion in the right way. And you've talked about something like the availability of data. When you think about expansion, how we generate our income is from the commissions that the banks pay us. So part of our expansion consideration has to be, are those banks, as part of their strategy, do they intend on creating the balance sheet to enable the consumers in those geographies to be able to get home loans in the first place? And if that case is true, then they would need a distribution strategy on how they're going to have those customers make applications to them for consideration for that mortgage. The good thing about it is that they don't have to have a huge capital outlay to develop a branch network, which would be quite expensive for them to be in those communities where individuals can apply. They can simply use the same digital infrastructure that currently exists now. So what we would look at as a call it a consideration of that expansion would be, how many of those banks in that particular geography have a balance sheet that they can give towards home loans? And if they do that, then it'd be worth us then doing the typical groundwork of engaging with them, getting into commercial arrangements with them, and taking on the cost of marketing, the cost of education, buyer education, and the cost of creating the right levels of awareness that people can understand where to go to be able to access the funding from these various banks. So the consideration for us when it comes to expansion is we have to look at what current strategies exist from these various banks in those geographies, and then look to then expand and support them in their strategy to advance mortgages to potential homeowners.
Thank you very much for that again. And I will move on over to Thomas. A few minutes ago, you shared with us how you had most of your investors as first-time investors. You talked a little bit about the friction points, but bringing it home to how you can measure the point of where technology or digital product design meets customer expectations. What would you say is a key indicator of that alignment from your perspective at Franc?
Sure. So for us, it's been fundamental that we can track everything from the entire customer interaction with the product. So we lean heavily on analytics that allow us to identify every single point within the sort of onboarding journey. So, there are two dimensions to that problem. The first is obviously through interaction with clients, and that happens all the way at the very beginning in a sort of a design phase when we sit down and put, prototypes in front of potential clients and get them to interact with the prototype. The second is then people that have started using the product and service. We have an active, outgoing, and ongoing kind of a call survey interaction where we actually engage with customers, try and understand how they found that initial experience, and really trying to get some of the softer insights around where people are finding difficulty. And then the last is obviously from a data perspective. So being able to kind of leverage tools that are out there like Google Analytics and Firebase Analytics to integrate the mobile app, whether that's the Android or the Apple iOS app, triggering events through the entire onboarding journey so that we can see which features are used. And obviously we want to design it such that it's as simple to use. So not overloading information, but allowing information and tools to be easily accessible during the onboarding process. So by having that analytics, we can clearly see, how many of our new users are using certain features, are requesting further information at key points in the journey. And then that allows us to obviously try and enhance those features, make it more easy to access through the onboarding process. So it really is a constant process of optimization, if you will, that's using design at the front end and analytics at the back end, and really having a sort of a closed feedback loop to try and improve the user experience.
Quality, thank you very much. I'll now move over to our customer analytics guru from AXA Mansard. And my next question will really be around the African Continental Free Trade Area. The ACFTA is an agreement reached by about 54 of the African Union countries. And the major goal is really around inclusive and sustainable development. And my question to you, Chukwuma, is how do you see that agreement impacting your business? You've already touched on how insurance is tough to sell in the new world and maybe for different reasons. And with this agreement trying to open up markets across many African countries, and the fact that your organization is part of the larger AXA group, how do you see this agreement playing a role? Have you started taking some posturing? A lot of organizations are still studying it. Where are you, and what do you have to share with the audience today? Thank you.
Charles, this is a billion-dollar question. And I had envisaged that this will be asked, if not here, in subsequent talks that I will feature in. For starters, the African Continental Free Trade Zone or area, it's a fantastic project. Africa is gold mine today to a lot of potentials. It's like if we had statistics enough in this part of the world, I doubt if we have tapped up to 1% of the potentials available within the continent. Inclusive and sustainable development, fantastic aim for all of us to achieve. So the key word is, okay, first question, are we positioning ourselves? Oh, yes, big yes. The real question is, what should the listeners on this call today do? It's all about positioning. Before we march into this era, before it blows up, COVID-19, it ravaged the entire world. It brought certain businesses to their knees. Some organizations had to let go of staff. So it was hard and biting for some. Finally, we all stopped seeing industry-wide competition. For me, that had always been a fallacy. I'm not in competition with the next insurance organization. Amazingly, for my line of business, we don't only do insurance, we do health, HM1, then we do investment. So the world has now become a truly global market space. And that's what Africa is trying to birth. Team on this call, Thomas on this call, even you, Charles, the lion on this call, we stopped having that industry-wide competition. So now we all fight for one thing. It is called the wallet of the customer. Wallet. And guess the things competing for that wallet today. Healthcare bills, food, water, sustainability. It is now an open market. So what would I advise anybody listening to this call to do? Take a step back from what you've always known. CEOs in particular, right? I have occasions I sit with CEOs, my friends, and then we just bounce ideas off one another. We don't always agree. We bounce ideas off. So what would a CEO today do to position, to position the organization? It lies on your shoulders. Number one, pull back a bit. Operational task, let your COO, let your, what do you call it? Your chief operation officer, let them handle the operational task. Pull back a little bit. If you have a chief business development officer, pull back to such a person, and then start thinking strategically. How do we position ourselves? It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. Certain things will be demanded from this agreement, the African Continental Free Trade Zone or Free Trade Area. Certain things will be demanded on an African scale. How do you position yourself? And it starts with having, how do you put this, a continental mindset, okay? Over time, I did some studies in Harvard as well. And then you come back home to a country like Nigeria. Everything you've learned, nothing will work on the streets. Nothing. So you sit back. The African market isn't just full of, I'm trying to summarize this, isn't just full of the tech savvy. Exactly. That's the beauty about it. It has a lot of unbanked and semi-banked. And guess what? That is where the money is. What's the bank population today in Africa? So for those that will position themselves, I'm giving some good hints, some nuggets. Practically what we did, what I as a person am doing. Africa is full of the semi-banked and unbanked. How can you tap into that market? There are certain steps, right? You need to be a part of these people as well. A very, very short story. So I was put to manage a territory. I see myself as more of a business development person in customer analytics or customer experience role. So I once managed a territory in Nigeria. It's in Lagos, for those familiar with Lagos. And it was generating about the target was 220 million naira per month. That's about $80,000, if I'm correct, right? 200 million a month. And this territory was doing less than 82 million monthly. Then I worked in telco. So what did I do? First and foremost, I had to be in the problem. You must be in the problem to position yourself. You must be in the problem to solve the problem practically. So I will go and I had a driver, right? I will take 3 pairs of shirts, 3 every day to work. The first pair I will put on, and then I will go on the street and start talking to the umbrella people. I knew them by name. I knew their spouses. I knew their children. I knew the school the children attended. Guys, I'm talking.
Chukwuma, the question will be, how do we bring those people into the digital space, and how do we see that competition across Africa, you know?
Okay, so how do you bring them into the digital space? Number one, we need to go into them. I went on foot with these people, right? Oh my God, I'm not kidding, guys. I was treating typhoid fever every month because I ate what they ate, I drank what they drank. We became friends. My business had to ride or drown. So once I understood how they wanted to do business, right? For some of them, we had to bring in USSD, okay? Rather than full-fledged app. We had to use the USSD approach because of the type of phones that they used, right?
Network, yeah.
Low-end phones, yes. So USSD worked for them. Guys, 13 months after, from a territory that was producing 82 million naira per month, right? It's on record. We brought in 1.6 billion monthly. The same thing is going to happen.
Okay.
Sorry?
So what you're trying to say, Chukwuma, is we need to understand the markets properly. If we need to roll up our sleeves and our pants to do that, then we need to do that before we can delve into exploiting the opportunities that the agreement presents. I think that's what I understand from what you're trying to say. So thank you so much. And I will move on now to Sam. Sam, I want to understand, you have about 600 branches across mainly South Africa, which is, of course, one of Africa's largest economies. And I know that the way customers typically crave access or ease of access to services, enhanced customer experience, all of these come with potential exposures that can affect market demands and also create competition. How does your organization strike a good balance between this pursuit for exceptional customer experience and the exposures that it presents from a digital technology standpoint? So I'm talking a little bit around security now, because it's a major challenge in the world today. We talk about digital customer experience, access to markets. How do you balance that between keeping your customers secure and winning the markets, as many of us would like
to? Thanks, Charles. One thing that we've been doing quite well as FNB is that we were very deliberate in terms of where we wanted to invest. If you look at the majority of our investments, you'd see that they're in high technology, because we believe that security is of the essence. If you were to say who is more trustworthy, or no, for a lack of a better word, customers have that thing of trusting a bank more than anybody else. Let me just put it that way. And for that reason, it says it is imperative for us to invest more in the security. That's why, as we are trying to acquire the market, but at the same time trying to stay relevant, security for our customers has always been key. Key in a sense that they are trusting us with their money. And if they're trusting us with their money, we should give them that comfort for them to trust us. Trust is something that you earn. It doesn't just fall off from the tree. And for that reason, that's why we've been very deliberate in terms of where we put our money in. We spend millions and millions of rands every year tightening our security, making sure that our apps are relevant, making sure that we have the best team looking after these channels that our customers are using. One of the latest things that we did recently is a partnership with the FinTechs. We have seen that as the banks, and in fact, you will all agree that the regulators are not as friendly to the banks, or rather as lenient to the banks as they are to the FinTechs. the bottom of the pyramid is a space that we've been trying to play in for a very long time. When we introduced e-wallet way back in around 2013 or so, and other tech stuff. But then we saw that no, man, what is happening is that the regulator is not as friendly as they're supposed to be, or they are not as willing to let us play in that market as we should. So that means it's time to foster collaboration with the fintechs within the space, because now you'd find that we are regulated in different areas, and the different areas that we are regulated in, some have lesser restrictions than others. So for that reason, we would then check and analyze their infrastructure and the security and all that. So that's why we ended up acquiring one of the fintechs in the rural areas, just for us to be able to play in that market, because then it would be very expensive for us to try and play in that space. One of the speakers earlier mentioned partnership with the fintechs, not trying to do it all by yourself. That is the notion that we are actually following as FNB, and it's panning out quite well, because that being the case, it means we don't have to spend that much in infrastructure. If you were to look at the cost of infrastructure for a bank and the cost of infrastructure for a fintech, the difference is visible. So that being the case, it means the cost of regulation is also very high on the banks. Talk about KYC. The cost of making sure that you are compliant, your customers are compliant, is way too high. And for that reason, you have to be smart in that game to say, how am I going to play in this space without exposing myself? But like I said, security is of key concern. That's why we have the best team on the ground. And each and every now and then, we try to deploy different tactics in terms of protecting our customers. And these tactics are AI-driven. So that means we are incorporating a lot of artificial intelligence in our systems to be able to detect the different patterns of our customers, for instance, to be able to detect if there's an unusual movement within their accounts and making sure that they know right there on the spot. That's why we have actually moved from the use of one-time PINs, or OTPs for short. Right now, we are busy driving our customers to our FNB app, which is our most trusted channel, because the security around that app is such that it's not something that can be intercepted, versus the OTPs and the SMSs. The hackers are having a heyday with the OTPs and intercepting messages and all that. But within that platform, we are also making sure that we are building an ecosystem that allows them to meet with the different SMEs as well within that space. So it's an ecosystem that we have created. And within this ecosystem, our customers are able to interact even with the bank officials within it. So we actually move into that level where we say our app should be a one-stop shop for our customers, because now the amount of security and the investment that has gone into it is really worthwhile. And the speed of doing things, because then it doesn't confine you to say you should be roaming in order to get OTPs when you want to transact. You can transact while you're in America, you can transact while you're in Cuba, in Asia, wherever you are, as long as you have connection to the internet. So we have actually removed those hurdles in terms of our customers being able to transact anywhere in the world. So I must say security is of key. And of course, it takes a greater chunk of our investments. And I think in one of the sessions, I think the lady, Anna, she mentioned something like, quite often you'd find that the companies, their budget in terms of cybersecurity versus what they expect to see, they're not congruent. But I'm proud to say for FNB, it's on the contrary, because it's something that we picked a while back when we started this digital transformation journey, and it's panning out quite well. And you'd find that even the players within our market are actually now playing catch up, because we saw it coming before. We saw it a mile ahead, and then we started adapting correctly. That's why when COVID-19 hit and everybody else was forced to work from home, it took us a space of a few weeks to land on our feet, and we are fully operational. We never stopped working because we had already started deploying systems like Microsoft Teams, having researched thoroughly in terms of how well they are and their capabilities and all that. So we have had the benefit of being ahead of our game, and ahead of our competitors within our market. And we are continuing on that trend because ultimately what we see is brick and mortar is slowly losing importance and everything is now going digital. So it hasn't been a painful experience. And if you were to look at our financial performance in this past 2 years, it was largely driven by digital transactions because we landed in that space earlier than others. And now we started seeing some cost savings, leveraging off of that. Now, it also enabled us to reduce the cost of banking to the customer who wants to transact digitally, therefore giving back to the public, but at the same time, not losing on our profit margins. Because as they do so, we are also automating the back office. And as we automate the back office, that means less cost there. And then we are introducing more innovative technology to help us keep up with the pace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have just a few minutes to round up. And what I would like to do is, before we get maybe 30 seconds to say our last words to the audience, at any point, I've asked for questions in the WhatsApp, in the group, in the Zoom chat. So if there are questions from the audience, if you have it directly to any of the panelists, please mention the name. Otherwise, I'll leave it open. But I will start with Franc. If you will leave us with your last words, either from what's been discussed by other panelists or something you think would be very beneficial to be shared today. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Charles.
And please, sorry, just a minute. If you have questions, please drop them in the group. We will take the ones we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. I think, the last two comments by Sam and Chukwuma are really important for two different reasons. So for us, we've also seen the enhanced security that a mobile application has given our users. They feel that it is very personal. They feel that it's very secure. Obviously now more so that a lot of phones allow for sort of a biometric login access. But I think the point that Chukwuma made with regards to meeting people where they are, there are not a lot of people who have those phones, although that obviously those growth numbers are changing year on year. So what we found is, there has to be a tension between, technology that is accessible and also, the latest technology which provides the greatest level of security. So the way we've done that within Franc is realizing that a lot of internet service providers and sort of mobile network operators are zero rating Facebook Messenger, for example, and a lot of sort of chat-based applications. So enabling clients to onboard through chat is now a way in which we realize we can reach customers who maybe don't have the phone capabilities that we would want, whether that's enough space on their phone to have another application or the data costs, etc. So I think that the technology has to find that intersection point between providing the best that the technology can offer, while at the same time trying to maximize access.
Okay. Thank you very much. We can move over now to you, team. Any last words for our audience?
Yeah, I think it's a good point that Thomas makes, and the one that Sam makes. Security is important for people to want to adopt a more digitally inclined way of engaging with banks or experiencing the products and services. They need to feel like the infrastructure and the environment that they're operating in is one that doesn't put them at risk or put their business at risk. I do think that a bigger part of what would drive adoption is a greater understanding of the fact that digital transformation is not just about technology, and it's not just about doing away with the old school way of doing things and having everything be technology led, but it's also about understanding that there's a healthy balance between doing things that can be automated, that have a mundane nature, with still retaining that human aspect and that human touch. And the real wisdom is knowing when to deploy one over the other in a way that enhances that whole experience. I think that's a key consideration for businesses looking to digitize, that they understand how to infuse human capability with digital capabilities that do exist today.
Thank you very much, team. And over to you, Chukwuma. In 30 seconds, share your few words with us. But in the meantime, we have a question from Richard Stewart for Thomas. So maybe you can take that after Chukwuma, but in very few seconds. Thank you, Chukwuma. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks. I will advise our listeners and viewers, get a hold of today's conversation. I will also. It's been so explosive. Thomas came all out, poured out his mind. Sam really had a lot to say to the financial space. And Tim has this holistic way of seeing customer experience and digitization. Get hold of today's session and play it back. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Sam, 30 seconds before we take the final question from Thomas, and then I wrap up. We have 2 minutes to close. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. And I'll keep it short and sweet. And this is to all the companies out there, those who are watching this session. I just want to reiterate what I said first in my opening remarks. Customer centricity will take you anywhere. Don't design anything that does not have the customer at the center of it, because then that customer is not going to use it. Get in the shoes of the customer, get in the mind of the customer. Thomas spoke about analytics. We have all of these powerful tools that can actually aid us as we try and land these new innovative products, because this is just the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. And if you want us to keep up with the pace and stay ahead of your game, customer centricity is key. Thank you.
Thank you. To you, Thomas, very quickly, if you can do this in 30 seconds, that will be a digital transformation, right?
I can.
The question is, how have you overcome the complexity of multiple languages in South Africa, specifically at the lower LSM? I'm not sure what that means. The limitation of reading and understanding English, from onboarding to training on your products.
Sure. So it's a really important question. We've tackled complexity in two ways. From an investment perspective, we've actually just distilled it down to a cash fund, a money market fund, and an index tracking ETF. Obviously, in the investment universe is very large and very complex, but actually our proposition is a simple proposition, if you will. But on the question of language, it really is important. And we realize that we have to extend. So we're in the process of enabling multi-languages on the mobile application. Again, the technology allows you to do so, and with a chatbot as well. By defining a kind of a language file and using Google Translate services, it's very easy to create, think of it as sort of your language file for your application. So whatever the user presents themselves with, whatever their language is, they can then access and hopefully understand the interaction and the onboarding experience.
Thank you very much. We've had a very wonderful session today. Thank you to you, team, Sam, Chukwuma, and Thomas. We've heard a lot of things today, from being customer-centric to being able to manage or incorporating AI, or having one-stop shop around security, to stepping back and understanding our markets properly and digitalizing when we can, or when we fix those problems. Otherwise, we magnify those problems, and how we need to be forward-thinking, planning, and implementation to stay ahead. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. We have 1 or 2 more questions which we can provide feedback to through the organizers, but at this time we have to go. Thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day, you all.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of the program.